To determine the maximum number of lights you can install on a 20 amp circuit breaker in a 277 volt installation, we'll follow a few steps involving basic electrical calculations. The key is to understand the relationship between wattage, amperage, and voltage. The first step is to calculate the total wattage. The formula for total wattage is number of fixtures multiplied by the wattage per fixture. In this case, we are trying to determine X, the number of fixtures, and the wattage per fixture is given as 32 watts. The second step is to determine the amperage per fixture. The formula for amperage is wattage divided by voltage. For each fixture, the amperage is 32 watts divided by 277 volts. This results in an amperage of 0.115 amps per fixture. The third step is to calculate the maximum number of fixtures that can be installed. The formula for the maximum number of fixtures is the amperage of the circuit breaker divided by the amperage per fixture. In this scenario, the amperage of the circuit breaker is 20 amps, and the amperage per fixture is 0.115 amps. Dividing 20 amps by 0.115 amps gives you approximately 174 fixtures. Therefore, you can install a maximum of 174 fixtures on a 20 amp circuit breaker in a 277 volt installation. It is important to note that this calculation is based solely on the electrical load of the fixtures. It's crucial to consider other factors that may affect the number of fixtures you can safely install. These factors include voltage drop, which is the decrease in voltage along the length of the circuit conductors, and the National Electrical Code requirements. Voltage drop can occur when the wires are too long or too small for the amount of current they are carrying. Excessive voltage drop can cause the lights to dim or not function properly and can even damage the equipment. The National Electrical Code provides guidelines for voltage drop in branch circuits and feeders. It is also important to consider the inrush current, which is the initial surge of current that occurs when the lights are first turned on. The inrush current can be several times higher than the steady-state current and can overload the circuit breaker if too many lights are turned on at the same time. To account for inrush current, it is recommended to use a circuit breaker that is rated for inductive loads. In addition, it is crucial to ensure that the wiring is properly sized for the load. The National Electrical Code provides tables that specify the minimum wire size for different ampacities. Using undersized wiring can cause the wires to overheat and can even lead to a fire. Furthermore, it is essential to consider the ambient temperature of the installation. The ampacity of wires decreases as the ambient temperature increases. Therefore, it may be necessary to use larger wires if the lights are installed in a hot environment. It is also important to consider the type of ballast used in the fluorescent fixtures. Electronic ballasts are more energy efficient than magnetic ballasts and produce less heat. Therefore, using electronic ballasts can help to reduce the overall load in the circuit. In addition to the electrical considerations, it is also important to consider the lighting requirements of the space. The number of fixtures required will depend on the size of the space, the desired light level, and the type of work that will be performed in the space. It is recommended to consult with a lighting designer to determine the optimal number of fixtures for your specific application. Finally, it is essential to comply with all applicable building codes and regulations. These codes and regulations may specify the maximum number of fixtures that can be installed on the circuit, as well as other requirements for electrical installations. By considering all of these factors, you can ensure that your lighting installation is safe, efficient, and meets the needs of your space. Remember to always consult with a qualified electrician for any electrical work. Working with electricity can be dangerous, and it is important to take the necessary precautions to protect yourself and others. For example, consider using a higher gauge wire for your installation to account for any potential voltage drop, especially if the fixtures are located far from the circuit breaker panel. Higher gauge wires have a lower resistance, which helps to minimize voltage drop. Also, ensure that all connections are tight and secure. Loose connections can cause arcing and overheating, which can lead to a fire. Use appropriate connectors and tools to make the connections. It's also a good idea to label all of the circuits in a panel. This will make it easier to identify the correct circuit when troubleshooting problems or making changes to the installation. Use a permanent marker or label maker to create clear and easy to read labels. Furthermore, test the installation after it is complete. Use a multimeter to measure the voltage and current at various points in the circuit. This will help to verify that the installation is working properly and that there are no overloaded circuits or voltage drop issues. When selecting a circuit breaker, choose one that is specifically designed for lighting circuits. These circuit breakers are typically rated for switching duty and can handle the inrush current of fluorescent lights. Also, consider using a ground fault circuit interrupter circuit breaker to protect against ground faults. Ground faults can occur where electricity leaks to ground, which can be a serious safety hazard. Ground fault circuit interrupter circuit breakers will trip and shut off the power if a ground fault is detected. When installing the fixtures, make sure to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. This will help to ensure that the fixtures are installed properly and that they will operate safely and reliably. Pay attention to the mounting requirements, wiring connections, and grounding instructions. Also, consider using energy-efficient ballasts and lamps. Energy-efficient ballasts and lamps can save you money on your electricity bill and can also reduce the amount of heat generated by the fixtures. Look for ballasts and lamps that are Energy Star rated. Remember to consult with a qualified electrician for any electrical work. Working with electricity can be dangerous, and it is important to take the necessary precautions to protect yourself and others. Always turn off the power before working on any electrical circuits. Use insulated tools and wear appropriate personal protective equipment. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, hire a qualified electrician to do the work for you. By following these tips, you can ensure that your lighting installation is safe, efficient, and meets the needs of your space. Always prioritize safety when working with electricity.